This happened last summer. I was 34 and working as a freelance graphic designer. I often took the late train home from the city because I liked the quiet. The train station was small and almost deserted, out on the outskirts. The neon lights flickered, casting weird shadows. The night felt heavy and damp. I often sweated while waiting, listening to distant trains echoing in the quiet. One evening, I settled down on a bench to wait for my train. I noticed someone at the far end of the platform. They were hunched over and dragging something behind them. At first, I thought it was nothing, just another late-night commuter. I didn't think much of it. But then it happened again. Night after night, the same figure would appear, always dragging something heavy. The dragging sound cut through the silence. It made my skin crawl a bit, but I couldn't look away. I grew curious. I think I started to expect the figure's presence. Each time I waited, I'd glance down the platform. I half hoped to see them and half hoped not to. I watched shadows dance under the flickering lights. The figure always seemed shrouded in darkness. I couldn't make out their features, and that unsettled me. There was one night that really stuck with me. I was waiting, as usual, when I heard the dragging sound. It was loud, almost like something scraping against concrete. My heart started to race. I looked down the platform. There they were, standing still. I felt cold all over. I wanted to call out, to ask if they were okay, but I couldn't. It felt like my throat had closed up. The moment stretched out. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I was sure they would turn around or walk closer, but they didn't move. Suddenly, the train pulled up, shaking the ground. That sound broke the spell. I hurried aboard without looking back. My heart pounded. Even now, I'm not sure if they were real or just my imagination running wild. The dragging sound echoes in my mind. I've never stopped thinking about it. It lingers, reminding me of that strange presence at the train station. I can't shake the feeling of being connected to that figure. Now, I pay attention when I hear a dragging sound. It could be trash. It could be something else. I still think about that night often. What was that figure? Why did I feel so drawn to them? I tell myself it was nothing, but in the back of my mind, I hear it. The drag. It follows me. It creeps into my thoughts. Sometimes I can almost hear the faint scraping sound, and for a moment, I'm back at that platform, heart racing, waiting for answers I know I'll never find. The next week felt different. I found myself dreading my evening trips to the train station. The memory of that figure lingered. I avoided staring too long down the platform, but part of me still craved to know more. Could they be just a person, struggling with something heavy, or was there something darker at play? That night, as I sat on the bench, I noticed the platform was unusually quiet.
It felt like the air had thickened, making it hard to breathe. I glanced at my watch. The train was late. I shifted on the cold bench, trying to ignore the increasing tension in my chest. Then I heard it again, a dragging sound. It was soft at first, like a whisper against the concrete. My heart sank. I looked down the platform, holding my breath. That's when I saw it. The figure was back. They emerged from the shadows, still hunched over, dragging whatever it was behind them. There was something different about them this time. I squinted, trying to make out their features. I noticed a distinct glimmer just beyond the figure, a flash of silver against a dull concrete. Something metallic? My mind raced. Was it a tool? A weapon? It felt ominous. As they neared, the dragging sound grew louder, scraping against the ground. It sent chills through me. I wanted to flee, but I felt stuck, curiosity pinning me to the bench. Suddenly, the figure stopped. They paused in the flickering lights, unmoving. I could see the outline more clearly now. A hood obscured their face, but beneath it, I thought I caught a glimpse of pale skin, cold and unnerving. My stomach twisted. Then, like a switch had flipped, the figure looked up. At that moment, I realized I had to know. I forced myself to stand. "Are you okay?" I called out, my voice trembling. There was a moment of silence, and then, incredibly, they started to walk toward me. The dragging sound quickened. My body froze with fear. This wasn't what I wanted. Without thinking, I turned to run, my heart pounding. I sprinted to the stairs leading to the street above, but I could hear them behind me. Their movements quickened, and I dared to glance back. The figure was closer now, impossibly so. The dragging had turned into a rapid scrape. It felt surreal. I burst through the exit, gasping for air. Just as I reached the top, I heard a voice, sharp and almost angry. "Stop!" The command echoed in the still night. I didn't look back. I raced down the street, not stopping until I reached my apartment. I collapsed inside, slamming the door behind me. Breathless, I sank against the wall. What was that figure? Why had they chased me? I couldn't shake the unease. The dragging sound now haunted me in the silence of my room. I realized then I had to find out who or what they were. My unease had turned into an obsession. I needed answers. But as I closed my eyes, a single thought flickered in my mind. What if I didn't like what I found? The next day I struggled to focus. Work felt like a haze as my mind replayed the events of the night before. I kept glancing at the clock, counting down the hours until I could return to the train station.
I knew I shouldn't go back, but I felt a pull, a magnetic force that wouldn't let me stay away. When the day finally ended, I stole a few glances at my reflection in the office windows. I looked tired, maybe a little frantic. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions, I told myself.
I needed to understand who or what was haunting me. As I approached the station later that evening, a sense of determination mixed with anxiety coursed through me. My heart raced, but I pressed on. I made my way to the same bench, the familiarity of it both comforting and terrifying at once. The platform was mostly empty. A few people scurried past, their faces blurred by the artificial light. The train was late again. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the dragging sound that had haunted my thoughts for days. I needed answers. I wasn't alone on the platform this time. A group of teenagers clustered nearby, laughing and joking, completely at ease. I envied their nonchalance. It made me feel more vulnerable. As the minutes dragged on, the laughter gradually faded, and with it, my courage. Then there it was. The dragging sound emerged, just like before. Softer at first, but unmistakably there. I felt the familiar chill creep over me. I turned my gaze down the platform, and my heart dropped. The figure was back. They moved slowly, almost fluidly, as if they were part of the shadows. The metallic glimmer was more pronounced now. The closer they came, the more I felt that pit of dread in my stomach deepen. What were they carrying, and why was I still here? This time, I couldn't just wait and see. I recalled the face I thought I'd glimpsed before. A spark of recognition flickered to life in me. This was no ordinary shadow. I stood, forcing my legs to move. The teenagers noticed me, a look of confusion in their eyes as I walked hurriedly toward the stairs. I heard one of them call out, "Where are you going?" but their voices faded as I climbed. But my impulse to flee was interrupted. A sharp gasp reverberated through me as I tripped on the final step. I stumbled forward and braced myself against the wall. Then, a sickening silence fell over the station. I looked back, and that's when I saw it. The figure had stopped, just at the bottom of the stairs. They tilted their head, studying me like a specimen in the dark. I felt a shiver run down my spine. They raised their hand. The metallic object I had seen was now clearer. A pair of crutches? For a fleeting moment, pity washed over me, mingling with my terror. But just as quickly as it had come, that feeling slammed shut. The figure began to move again, dragging the crutches, their presence practically suffocating me. I backed into the shadows and took a breath, but then the voice I heard earlier echoed in my mind. The urgency to escape surged within me. That's when everything went dark. The lights flickered out, plunging the platform into shadow. I was gripped by panic. I needed to get out, but before I could react, I heard a soft voice whisper from the darkness. "Help me." I froze. My heart thundered in my chest. What did it mean? I was faced with a choice: escape to safety or confront the figure once and for all. I had to know what lay beneath that hood, what truth lingered in that hush.
I took a step forward, despite the voice of reason urging me to turn and run. I stepped into the darkness, my breath shallow and rapid. The whisper still lingered in my ears, a haunting plea that promised both danger and potential answers. I had to see this figure up close. I needed to know if I was imagining things, or if I faced something truly otherworldly. As I edged forward, the shadows seemed to shift around me. The sound of dragging crutches grew louder, vibrating against the platform floor. I squinted, desperately trying to make out the figure. They stood eerily still now, as if waiting for me to approach. "Help me," the voice came again, softer this time, but it held an urgency that felt like a command. I felt the heat of my fear pressed against my skin, and yet I couldn't back away. I took another cautious step, my heart pounding in time with the echoing sound of the crutches. With every footfall, the figure shifted. I saw the glint of eyes peering from beneath the hood, a section of pale skin just visible at the edge. I halted, frozen between curiosity and dread. I swore I saw a flicker of recognition there, but my mind scrambled for answers. Was it someone I knew? Suddenly, the train station lit up for a moment, a brief glow like the flash of a camera. In that split second, I saw the full form of the figure. Crutches dangled from their sides, worn and rusted, and their face was twisted under the cloak. The features were distorted, eerily familiar yet foreign. My pulse raced faster, and that initial spark of recognition ignited into a burning realization. I had seen this figure before. It hadn't been a fleeting moment in a dream. The image of them had haunted my childhood. "Teke Teke," my grandmother used to say. "Don't go near the train tracks, or she'll get you." I had thought it was just a ghost story. I felt my stomach twist.
This was no mere myth. This was real. A terrible energy filled the air. My limbs felt heavy as dread washed over me. What destruction had I awoken? "Help me," came the whisper again, but this time it sounded more desperate. The air thickened, and I could hear my own heartbeat drowning out the station's silence. At that moment, I noticed a glimmering object in my feet, a small pendant, tarnished and dull. It glinted just enough to catch my eye, but I couldn't afford to bend down and examine it. My gaze remained fixed on the figure, which was now inching closer, crutches dragging like a clock ticking away my time. I had to decide. The map of my fear was drawn clear as day. I could run, escape this nightmare, or take the plunge into darkness and confront the legend I had dismissed for so long. But the whisper continued, louder now, shifting from a plea to a command. "Help me, please." I swallowed hard, my hands trembling, uncertain of what lay ahead. I couldn't run. Not now. It was time for the truth. Steeling myself, I stepped into the shadows, bracing for whatever came next.
And that's when the lights flickered back on. The lights blazed to life, illuminating the entire platform. For a heartbeat, everything seemed normal again. The flickering bulbs cast elongated shadows, and the sound of distant trains roared back to life. But the figure remained, as if it were the only reality in a world that had come back from the dead. This close, I could see their face more clearly. The features were grotesque, twisted beyond recognition, but there was still something familiar about them. My mind scrambled, trying to connect the dots, wondering who this could truly be. I stepped back involuntarily as the figure moved forward, dragging the crutches with a sound that echoed in the cavernous station. "Help me," they repeated, voice breaking like an old record. I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet were glued to the ground. Something pulled at me, a sense of obligation mixed with pure terror. I recalled stories my grandmother told me. "Teke Teke always needs someone to share her pain," she would warn. "If you hear her call, it means she wants you to understand." But how was I supposed to understand this? I took another step back, and the figure tilted its head. In that strange moment, the air shifted. I remembered the pendant at my feet, the glimmering object that had almost slipped my mind. It seemed to draw my gaze like a magnet. Maybe it was important somehow. I threw a quick glance at the pendant. It felt like a key to something, but then I forced my eyes back to the figure, their elongated shadows stretching toward me. "Help me," they said again, this time with a tone that felt like it was diving deep into my soul. I knelt, lowering my eyes to the pendant. It was tarnished and dull, shaped like an ancient coin with strange markings etched into the surface. A shiver ran down my spine. This wasn't just any old memento. It was something steeped in history, something that had been lost. And suddenly, the room trembled with an unseen energy. I heard whispers in the air, not just from the figure, but a chorus behind and around me. "Set me free," they all seemed to say in unison. The lights flickered again, and I could almost make out silhouettes in the corners, faces twisted in despair. I felt bile rise in my throat. This was no longer just a terrifying hallucination or some childhood myth. Was I somehow linked to this creature? Had my actions awakened something deeper, something ancient that I was not prepared for? The whispers grew louder, almost drowning out my own thoughts. "Take it! Take it to the shrine!" The command echoed around me, pulling me into another layer of dread. I glanced back at the figure, who was now barely a few feet away, leaning in with an expression that was both menacing and pleading. "Help me," they whispered again, the desperation unspeakable. I had to act. Grabbing the pendant, I stood tall. Whatever this was, I couldn't let it consume me.
I needed answers, even if it meant I had to face Teke Teke head on. Before I could process my next move, the world around me dimmed again. The lights went out, plunging the station back into darkness. Panic surged through me as I felt the ground shift, and the sound of crutches echoed like thunder. I gritted my teeth, bracing against the suffocating dark as I called out, "What do you want from me?" But there was no response, only silence, heavy with the weight of expectation. The darkness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, smothering any shred of courage I had left. Just when I thought I couldn't feel more lost, a faint glimmer caught my eye. Panic surged through me again, but I instinctively followed the light. I stepped carefully, mindful of the crutches dragging behind the figure. With each cautious move, the ground beneath me felt less stable, as if it could give way at any moment. I extended my hand towards the light, and my fingers brushed against something cold and smooth. It was the pendant. The whispers returned, swirling around me like a storm. "Take it to the shrine." The urgency in their voices spurred me on. I needed to find this shrine. What was it? Where was it? I had no idea, but something inside me urged me forward. Then, I remembered something from my grandmother's tales. She spoke of a shrine dedicated to the lost souls of the station, a place where offerings could ease their suffering. Could this place still exist? I tried to focus through the chaos in my mind. I had to find it. Help me, the figure pleaded again, now right beside me. I felt its icy breath against my neck. You have the key. Instinctively, I turned to face them. In the dark, I could barely see the contours of their twisted face, but the pleading in their eyes was clear. They needed me. I was terrified, but there was a flicker of empathy hitting me. It was as if I had a chance to set something right, to understand their pain. Where's the shrine? I found myself asking. Tell me how to find it. The figure's head tilted again, and with that, a distant echo filled the air, a faint sound of a train approaching. I turned instinctively, listening intently. The sound was real, threatening to drown out the whispers. It grew louder, reverberating through the empty platform. My heart raced as I felt the ground vibrate beneath me. Follow, the figure called out, urgency bursting through their ghostly tone. I hesitated, uncertainty gnawing in my gut. Why should I trust you? I shot back, the fear spilling out. Because you can't escape this. You are part of it now, they rasped, frustration twisting their features into something terrifying. The train comes for you. My breath hitched as the sound of the train grew deafening. The flickering lights began to strobe, and I felt disoriented. The shadows danced around me, morphing into indistinct shapes that grasped at the edges of my mind.
Just then, the lights blinked out again, leaving me in near complete darkness. With no choice, I took a step toward the sound of the train, hoping that it would lead me to the shrine, to answers, to freedom from this nightmare. I could feel the figure close behind, their crutches clattering ominously against the ground. But then, before I could even question whether I should have followed, I heard a horrifying shriek cut through the air. It was neither train nor ghost, but something more primal, something that sent shivers down my spine. I had become part of a story I never wanted to enter, and now I was running out of time. Then everything shifted again. I stumbled forward, crashing into something solid. I found myself at the edge of what seemed to be an open space, a tiny shrine maybe? Is this it? I gasped, scanning my surroundings. But I wasn't ready for what I found in the middle of the shrine. Someone was waiting. I blinked, trying to make sense of the figure before me. It was a girl, standing alone in the middle of the shrine. Her skin was pale, nearly luminous in the dim light. Her long hair hung down like a curtain, obscuring part of her face. I couldn't tell if she was real or another illusion cast by this haunted station. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "Help me," she replied, her words barely above a whisper. There was a desperation in her tone that made my heart race. "You have to listen." "What do you want?" I asked, taking a cautious step closer. With the echoes of the train still thrumming in my ears, I felt a heavy weight settle on my chest. "Find the key," she said, her eyes wide and glistening. "It's the only way to release us." "Release you?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "Release you from what?" She looked behind me, her gaze fixated on the dark corridor I had just come from. "The Teke Teke," she breathed, fear etching her features. "If it catches you." Her words trailed off, and dread washed over me. I had heard whispers of the Teke Teke, a spirit said to roam the abandoned places, dragging its own severed body along. A part of me wanted to turn back, to run, to get as far away from the shrine as possible. But another part, the part driven by curiosity and a faint sense of responsibility, kept me rooted in place. "I can't find the key," I said, feeling increasingly trapped. "What is it?" "It's a pendant," she said urgently, her voice rising. "The one you hold, the one you touched." My heart sank. "This," I looked down at the pendant dangling from my hand. Even in the darkness, I could see its intricate design, and I felt a sudden connection to it, as if it were a part of me. "Yes," she shouted, her desperation pushing me forward. "Bring it here. Place it at the shrine." Without knowing why, I obeyed. I stepped forward and knelt at the base of the shrine. The stone was cold against my palms as I placed the pendant gently on the altar. As it made contact, a low hum penetrated the air, resonating with something deep within the shrine. The girl stepped closer, her face illuminated by a strange glow emanating from the pendant. I looked up at her, and for the first time I caught a glimpse of her true expression. It was a bittersweet mix of hope and sadness, and the weight of her stare felt heavy. Then, from behind me, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of dragging, like something being pulled across the floor. My heart raced.
I turned to look, terrified that the Teke Teke was here. The girl grabbed my wrist, her grip firm. "You must hurry." Just as I turned to flee, I caught sight of a shadowy figure emerging from the darkness. Its features were indistinct, but I felt its malevolence wash over me like ice water. It had come for me. In that moment, I realized the true danger was not just my own fate, but the weight of the lost souls surrounding us, trapped in this place. They needed to be set free, and I was somehow entwined in their story. "Place the pendant down," the girl urged, her voice rising over the sound of the dragging. I could feel time slipping through my fingers, and I had to make a choice. Would I face the dark figure that wanted to drag me back into oblivion, or would I embrace the unknown and find a way to free us all? I felt the tremors of an answer pulsing in the ground beneath me, and it was time to act. I placed the pendant on the shrine and immediately sensed a shift in the air. A low, pulsing energy seemed to radiate from it. The girl looked at me, her eyes filled with urgency. "You have to focus. It's your connection to this place." I didn't have time to question how or why. The dragging sound was closer now, and my instincts took over. I stood up, heart pounding, scanning the dark corridor for any sign of movement. Shadows twisted in the corners of my vision, but nothing was clear. "Do you see it?" the girl whispered, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. I shook my head. "No, but I can feel it." My pulse quickened at the thought of being caught. "What do I do?" "Channel the energy," she urged. "Use the pendant to unlock the gate." "Unlock what gate?" I asked, feeling frantic. "The gate to the other side," she replied, eyes wide with emotion. "It's the only way to stop it. If you don't, it will consume you." Before I could respond, the dragging noise erupted into a horrifying screech that echoed through the shrine. I froze, fear rooting me to the spot. I could sense the Teke Teke lurking just out of sight, waiting to pounce. "Please," the girl cried, desperation flooding her voice. "Now! You have to do it!" I gripped the pendant tighter, feeling its smooth surface pulse beneath my fingers. Even though dread knotted my stomach, I took a step forward. The glow from the pendant brightened, illuminating the shrine's carvings. They seemed to swirl, depicting images of souls trapped in despair. The sight hardened my resolve. I wouldn't let that be me.
I closed my eyes and focused on the pendant. My breath steadied as I imagined unlocking that gate, guiding those lost souls to freedom. With a deep inhale, I shouted, "I release you." The air trembled, the energy from the pendant surging outward like a shockwave. The shriek of the Teke Teke grew louder. "No!" it seemed to scream, a sound full of rage and desperation. I opened my eyes and saw it now, a shadowy figure dragging itself closer, limbs distorted, eyes burning with fury. I pushed harder, channeling every ounce of will I had. "I release you all," I yelled, my voice echoing against the stone walls. Suddenly, the pendant blazed with light, illuminating the entire shrine. The dark tendrils binding the girl and the other spirits flickered like candles in a storm. I could sense them swirling, a chaotic dance around me, as if they were grasping for the light. The Teke Teke's anguished scream pierced the air, a sound that could chill the soul. In that moment, I felt a connection, not just to the girl, but to everyone trapped in this endless cycle. The pendant pulsed as if it had a heartbeat of its own, resonating with their pain. Then, out of the chaos came a single, bright beam of light, pulsing, alive. It shot from the pendant to the darkness, briefly illuminating the figure of the Teke Teke. I caught sight of its grotesque form, the hollow eyes filled with rage. But as the light struck it, the anger morphed into something else. Defeat. Before I could grasp what was happening, the shadows began to separate from the dark figure, swirling up towards the light. I felt warmth envelop me as a calm washed over the shrine. But just as I started to hope, a new sound cut through the air. The shriek morphed into laughter, deep and mocking. "You think you can save them?" My heart sank. I realized this was only the beginning, and the true power of the Teke Teke was still lurking. The light flickered as the shadows began to return. I needed to act fast, to face whatever had just stirred. "Help!" I shouted to the girl, but before she could respond, everything around me went dark. I stumbled back, my heart racing as the darkness wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. Panic hit me. I wanted to scream, but a heavy weight pressed down on my chest. I forced myself to breathe, to focus. I needed light. I needed to see. Then, just like that, the darkness fractured. A sliver of pale light emerged from the pendant, casting eerie silhouettes on the walls. The girl's face came into view, wide-eyed and terrified. "Don't give in," she shouted over the chaos. "You're stronger than it." But how could I be strong when shadows crawled back, hungry and relentless?
I glanced back at the Teke Teke, which seemed to have grown larger in the dark, its twisted form stretching across the shrine. It snarled, its eyes burning with malice. Channel the energy. The girl's voice cut through the panic again. I fumbled with the pendant, now warm in my grip.
It responded to my fear, radiating a faint glow that blinked like a heartbeat. Could I really unlock another gate and push back this darkness? I felt a surge of anger the very thought. It wasn't just about the spirits any longer. It was about me, my survival. "I won't let you take me," I yelled, and with newfound determination, I began to visualize the energy flowing from my core into the pendant. With every pulse, the light brightened, illuminating the shrine. I could see the unsettling carvings clearer now, each depicting a horror like the Teke Teke. But among them, I found something different, a carving of a door, slightly ajar with a golden light seeping through. "Use it," I shouted, drawing my focus to that door. "Show me the way." I thrust the pendant forward and imagined it opening. The pendant blazed brighter, and suddenly beams of light shot toward the door in the carving. The shadows hissed, recoiling as if seared by the brightness. In that moment, the Teke Teke halted, its grotesque limbs jerking in agitation. But just when I thought it might be working, the laughter returned, booming and reverberating through the shrine. "You can't trap me. I am eternal." I felt a chill run down my spine. What did that mean? Was it trying to tell me there was no escape? I glanced at the girl, her expression reflecting my own fears. "I won't give up," I shouted defiantly. "I'll face you." Drawing a deep breath, I concentrated harder. The pendant flared, waves of light expanding outward, trying to push back the station's darkness. That's when I saw it, a flicker at the edge of the shadows. A figure, not the Teke Teke, but something else was there, emerging from the gloom. My pulse raced. Whoever or whatever it was, it drew closer, stepping into the light. "Who are you?" I demanded, but the figure remained silent. Fear gnawed at my gut. Would this new presence help or hinder? Before I could think further, the darkness swirled violently. The Teke Teke, fed by the chaos, drew closer, its scream shattering the brief silence. "You will regret challenging me." I needed to act, and fast. The glow from the pendant flickered, my connection tightening around the stranger. I glanced at the girl, then back at the figure in the darkness, questions forming rapidly in my mind. Whatever was happening, one thing was clear. I needed to know whose side this figure was on, and fast. I took a shaky breath, my heart racing against the rising tide of darkness. The shrieks of the Teke Teke echoed in my ears, mingling with the whispers of trapped souls behind me. The figure in the shadow shifted, its outline still obscured, but I could feel an aura emanating from it, an energy that resonated with the pendant I gripped tightly. "Who are you?" I demanded again, louder this time, but the figure showed no signs of answering. Instead, it stepped closer into the light radiating from the pendant. As it emerged from the gloom, I recognized the face. It was me, but not. Like a distorted mirror reflecting a fractured version of my being, promising understanding but also danger. "Help me," the figure echoed, and dread washed over me. It was a twisted, haunting mimicry of my own voice, as if whatever darkness held this version of me sought to ensnare my will. The Teke Teke howled again, the grotesque noise vibrating through my bones. With every scream, I felt my resolve wavering. I couldn't let despair take hold. I looked down at the pendant, glowing warmly, recalling the girl's urgent pleas. "Channel the energy," she had said. I shut my eyes, envisioning the warmth of the pendant pouring from my heart into the ground, connecting with the lost souls. "I won't let you take me," I shouted, lifting the pendant high. "I won't let you take any of us." The pendant pulsed intensely, and in that moment the darkness began to recede. Light spilled forth in blinding waves, illuminating the shrine and scattering shadows away from me. I could see the expressions of the spirits caught in the crossfire, fear mixed with hope, frozen faces pleading for release. "Release us," the girl cried, her voice pushing against the clamor of the Teke Teke. My inner resolve solidified. If I channeled my fear and anger, perhaps I could liberate them all. "I will release you," I declared, locking my gaze on my distorted doppelganger. It shrieked, trying to rear back, but it was pulled forward by the tendrils of dark energy connecting to the Teke Teke. I gathered all my strength and summoned the pendant's power. "You have no hold over me," I bellowed. "I command the light to shine." The words flowed from my lips like a spell, and I thrust the pendant toward the creature, aiming to sever the connection binding it to the dark entity. As the pendant reached out, the air quaked with intensity. The glow enveloped everything, and within that brightness, the Teke Teke screamed in fury, thrashing against the light. The ground shook beneath us, tearing the shadows apart and exposing the shrine's very existence. The girl pressed closer, her gaze never leaving mine. Hope lit up her face. It felt contagious. "Don't stop. You can do this," she urged. Suddenly, a shadow's grasp broke free from the Teke Teke, and I saw a flicker of light, a soul escaping. I felt my heart race, an instinct coursing through me. With that one flicker, something shifted in the atmosphere. If one could break free, then perhaps more could follow. Driven by the harmony of collective will, energy surged through me, radiating from the pendant. I screamed and threw the pendant forward with all my might. "I set you free!" The shriek of the Teke Teke grew desperate, as if trying to bind me again, but the light swallowed it whole, dispersing the shadows that threatened to engulf us. Suddenly, I felt an exhale of relief, a rush of tranquility flooding the shrine. The glow enveloped everything in radiant warmth, and in its embrace, I could hear the whispers of lost souls take flight.
They rose, shimmering and ethereal, flying towards the ceiling of the shrine, through cracks and fissures, escaping 7 years of a darkness that hadn't belonged to them. The yawning darkness of the Teke Teke began to wither, shriveling as the world around me filled with the pureness of light. It howled in frustration, clawing at the fading warmth lacing the air while its form shrank and began to dissolve. Then silence washed over the shrine, a silence thick with the scent of loss and release. I stood, breathing shakily, body trembling from the energy of the released souls pulsing through my veins. But even in the stillness, there lingered an unsettling truth. My connection to that figure, that doppelganger, remained uncertain. I remembered the girl's warning and the shadowy counterpart, those lost whispers murmuring just beyond what I could understand. "What happens now?" I asked tightly, glancing toward the girl. "What about you?" "We are free," she said softly, her expression serene. "But a part of us always lingers. In you." Just before I could process her words, the shadows in the shrine pulsed one last time before vanishing. The pendant, warm in my palm, felt lighter. I blinked, trying to comprehend the enormity of what unfolded, but in its zealous warmth, an inevitable question stayed with me. Was the legend truly at an end, or had it simply faded, waiting for someone else to uncover it? As I stepped back into the world beyond the shrine, I sensed the weight of what I had witnessed. The train station felt different now, lighter, yet charged with an ungraspable energy. I heard the train approaching in the distance, its rhythm echoing softly against my pulse. In that moment, an unsettling truth settled in my chest. I knew I'd never return the same. I moved away from the shadows, but I felt their presence lingering, a reminder that mysteries remain unanswered, like life itself, a drawn-out echo of questions without conclusions. Sometimes in the deep corners of my thoughts, I hear whispers. I'm not sure if they're echoes of the past or signs from the present, but in the stillness of my life now, I know they're there, awaiting something just beyond my reach, something I may never fully understand.